I'm going to try to move us along from this point. I wanted to give everyone on the panel an opportunity to talk about what's happening, and that is important, I think, for most of us. But I want to thank David for kind of bringing some of that information forward. And I want to kind of open up a little bit. One of my questions was looking at the job housing, but I want to open that up and have each one of you talk a little bit about the demographics, and we'll come back to you and look at the job housing ratios. But look at the demographics and what the cities are thinking about in terms of what those statistics are telling you. So job, housing, demographics, the demographics in general of the community. And I'll start with Cupertino.
Okay. In Cupertino, you all have a demographics package for me. One of the statistics that you will see in there is that Cupertino is a 60-40 split, 60% Asian American and 40% mostly Caucasian. So there's this community, probably more than just about any other in Silicon Valley, has probably undergone the most dramatic change in probably the last 10, 20 years. The Asian category is, I would say, predominantly Chinese, but also Indian, as well as just some Japanese and Korean as well, but I would say predominantly Chinese. And I think that this community is doing a really good job of using these demographics to our advantage and saying, you know, we're kind of the showcase, not only for Silicon Valley, but for the world in terms of how you mix all of this together and come out with everybody winning. Probably the best evidence of that is in our school system, which is off the charts. And I have heard from many people that because the school system is so phenomenally, public schools are so phenomenally great in Cupertino, that it has a reputation in China and Singapore and Japan and other places that, gee, if your company moves you to Silicon Valley, you buy your house in Cupertino and you get into that school district quick because it's one of the best in the nation. So I think that has influenced a lot of our demographics over time. It's become self-reinforcing because of that. We've done a lot of surveying of city residents to find out what is it like being in a city that has completely done a 180-degree shift in demographics, and do you know your neighbors as much as you used to? How do you feel about it? And we've been really pleasantly surprised by the responses. People have said that they feel like it's a community that is close to one another, and all the statistics that we've seen on this from just resident surveys have been very positive. As a city, we make a really big effort to try to do as much outreach as we can, and everything's translated and interpretations if needed at meetings and so forth. So, and then also making sure that our city staff reflects that. And Michael Chang, who a lot of you know, who's really active at De Anza College, has really helped us, I think, as a city kind of grow in that regard and making sure that we are reflective as a city of our population. I think another really interesting example of that is I belong to Cupertino Rotary, and as an organization, they really decided that it was a challenge that we would give to Fremont from a Rotarian point of view. But the Rotary Club of Cupertino is really starting to match the demographics of the city. And how they have done that is they have said, okay, well, Rotary funds a lot of projects in different countries. We're going to shift the focus, so a lot of that money is going to projects in China and India. And guess what? The demographics of the club began to reflect the fact that the money and the energy is going to the places that people in this community care about. So I think that's just one of many examples. I like that example because it's more grassroots. It's not just government mandated. We're required to translate and do things like that. But this is an example of where the community really is blending together and coming together in a really substantial way. In terms of other influences that you see, obviously our shopping environment now reflects very much our demographics. Cupertino Village being, probably the greatest example. There's lots of other, examples you can find in Silicon Valley, but Cupertino Village has got to be right up there in terms of being just off the charts successful Asian center. And beyond that, anything you're just seeing in terms of business ownership, and et cetera. So we do have several people on our staff that speak Mandarin, and I'm always looking for ways to connect better with the Asian business community. They're not necessarily chamber members, and that's been kind of a challenge for me, is that would be like a typical way in a city that you would connect to a business community. And so I think we're going to have to kind of roll up our sleeves and figure out what is of importance, and maybe there are people in this organization that would be interested in talking about this over lunch sometime. What are the best mechanisms? Is it through education? Is it through finance? Or is it through more traditional networking opportunities? The last thing I would throw out here, because this is also something I'm looking for help on, is that traditional retailers aren't certain how to interface with a predominantly Asian community. They don't understand what your buying habits are. There is a lot of research out there on the Hispanic consumer. Like, for example, we know that a Hispanic consumer will spend twice as long in a mall as the average Caucasian customer. They will spend like 5 times as much money on their kids as the average Caucasian customer. This is great information for retailers, because they're saying, wow, we had kind of ignored the Hispanic audience, but we're figuring that we actually need to spend a lot more time focusing it. We want those dollars, and there's a lot of them. But there isn't a lot of data or research that I've been able to find about the Asian consumer, and maybe more specifically Chinese consumers. So if there is information out there that kind of explains that, I mean, it's hard because everybody's different, and so you don't want to make too many generalizations, but I think there would be a lot of value in terms of enhancing our business environment here if we had a better understanding about how this community shops, what's important, priorities for the family, et cetera.
Yeah, that's good. And actually, we can talk after the meeting if you're interested. We're actually affiliated with the Asian Real Estate Association of America, and they do a lot of demographic studies.
That's great.
So,
okay.
Mike?
Well, I was just going to tell an interesting story about the development community not understanding the Asian market. In Evergreen, I don't know, do many people, are they familiar with the Evergreen specific plan? Yeah. And so when they built it, it's a very attractive community, wonderful homes, there's a little village center, and they put it in a Leonardi's, which is an Italian-American family. It's a very high-end market. The people that bought the house were primarily East Indian families and Chinese families, and so they weren't shopping there, and the market has died. And I think they were talking about bringing the Ranch 99 or something, but they all pretty much and so there's a mismatch there, and so that's interesting. But, so San Jose, we just hired, well, not just, we hired Steve Levy from the continuing study of the California economy, I think I got it right, from Palo Alto to do our demographics. And we're still processing that information and trying to figure out what that means for us. But San Jose, of course, is one of the most diverse cities around, and that's not going to change. We're going to become even more diverse. Some trends that we see are the baby boomers getting older. I mean, there's going to be a huge cohort of the baby boomers getting old, and what does that mean? You know, the question is, are they going to stay here? I mean, a lot of baby boomers may decide it's too expensive to retire here, or I can sell my house for a lot of money and I can pocket the retirement and move. And then there's also a big cohort of younger people under 35, and so what we're thinking, and we're still investigating this, is that in the future, you know, we're moving towards higher density housing products. But we also think that it's not just that people are going to be forced to live in that there'll be more demand for that. People will want to live in those types of housing products because you have older people that want to downsize, that want to get rid of their yard, they're tired of taking care of it. They want to be downtown or an urban environment where they can go to the opera, go out to dinner, and they can walk there. And then you have a younger crowd that maybe they're single, they don't have children, or they're newlyweds, and they like living in an urban environment. And you know, typically maybe they live in San Francisco, traffic's only going to get worse, you know, so it's going to get hard to get there. So they think there's a market, that there really will be a market for this higher density product because of the younger cohorts and the retirees, the Asian baby boomers. There's a lot of implications of this for the aging population. Most of San Jose, like much of Santa Clara County, is very auto-oriented. And as you get older and older, it gets harder and harder to drive. And, you know, I know some of my relatives should not have been driving. And so there's going to be a need to, you know, to create environments that are senior-friendly, that they can meet much of their needs without having to get in a car and driving long distances. They can maybe walk or take a little shuttle or a cab or whatever. So those are some of the big issues we're grappling with. The other demographic issue is that you know, it's a very expensive place to live here. It will continue to be an expensive place to live, I think. And, you know, there's going to be people in high tech making a fair amount of money, and they'll be able to afford housing here. And then, but you also have all the service workers, that people take care of yards, and people that work in